now you can really hear me. Is that going to be, is it going to crackle too much?
Because I'm not the audio person, but we'll see.
Will it not rub as much
Oh,
there?
we go.
See,
Yeah,
I think.
great. Okay.
I was trying to put it lower, thinking that would be a better place. But
Well,
anyway.
thank you guys for coming. This is Nancy Skubal, and if you don't know her, she is the wife of Gray for 26 years, 4 children, and 1 still in high school. Her official homeschooling journey began 20 years ago, although she believes you begin home educating from birth. She uses an eclectic approach to homeschooling, which is often met with, "You collect things?" A funny response, because that's also true. Probably her favorite part of homeschooling has been learning with the kids. She's so much better at algebra after helping 4 kids through it than she ever was in high school or even college. So, welcome, Nancy, and we're excited to hear you talk about homeschooling in college.
Homeschooling in college. That's a big topic. Homeschooling in college. I can't cover it, and I think I have half an hour to talk. And just like a homeschool conference or the curriculum fairs, the information that's out there is abundant, and it can be quite overwhelming. So as you get to looking for this kind of thing, be sure you narrow down what you're searching for, the answers that you want, or you might get lost in just looking things up and miss some of the time you need for other things. But on that note, I am going to make a plug for a conference and curriculum fair. I don't know if you guys know about the Homeschool Iowa Conference. It's June 18th and 19th in Des Moines. And this year, they're going to have a high school and beyond concentrated track from noon on Saturday till 5:30. I think you could probably quit at 4:30. The last hour is kind of an interactive question-answer thing if looking at displays. So anyway, Homeschool Iowa is an excellent resource for all things homeschool, and they keep it up to date. And if you're going to write anything down, that would be the thing. If you don't know homeschooliowa.org, it's just an excellent resource anytime you have a question about anything. And they have a section on there about getting ready for college. And anyway, and it's a place you can trust what they have. They call it Homeschool Iowa now, but it also is Niche, and which is a network of Iowa Christian home educators, so that different people are on the board over the years, so some of their emphasis changes, but I've never found them not to be somebody that I can trust and not be concerned about what direction they might be sending me in. So I wasn't sure where to go with this talk because it is so big of an area. So I got a few questions and I started thinking about other ones, and I think I'm just going to go through questions that I've heard, try to answer them to the best of my ability, and I'm also going to say my knowledge is here in Iowa, so I'm not going to address how you do college in other states or anything like that. I know a little bit about Iowa colleges, a variety of them, and then what Iowa requires. But so the first question I had was, how do you homeschool so the child is prepared for college? Number one, they need to be rooted in God's Word. That's just, if you're going to focus on any subject, that's the one. When they go to college or they have colleagues in the workforce, they are going to be bombarded with different doctrines than what you've taught them. And so they need to be grounded in God's Word so that they know there's a basis for what we believe, and they need not to be blindsided by what they're going to be told or preached to or required to know, supposedly. So we don't want our children to think they've got it all, know it all, whatever, because in 1 Corinthians 10:12 it tells us to take heed. If we think we stand, take heed lest we fall. And then what helps us with that is alluded to and talked about in Ephesians 6:13. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand in the evil day, and having done all, stand. So we don't want them, thrown about by the winds of the collegiate world or just our society in general. According to my husband, wise farmer that he is, he said they need to be prepared for the onslaught. He's been in the tractor a lot lately, and he listens to Christian radio, and it's just alarming what's going on even in small communities. And so it's there, it's going to come, and he said they even need to be prepared in a Christian college setting, which we're all sinners, and that just comes in and manifests itself, it seems like. A second thing they need to succeed in college is to learn to persevere. Not all their classes or all the assignments in a class or even all the things they do on a job someday are going to be things that they're going to enjoy or that's going to come quickly or easily. So they need to learn to keep working on things. Learn how to work for a while, take a short break. Maybe that just means turning their attention to another subject and then coming back, not forgetting to come back. If you take a break, that doesn't mean you're done. Make sure that they can follow through on that. And one of the best pieces of advice I think I was given before I went to college was don't be afraid, and even work on some things to come up with some questions that are serious questions that you can go and ask the instructor, the professor, because that puts a face to a name, it shows enthusiasm, and it's just really helpful for that professor to know that you're taking an interest in the class and they know who you are. The colleges, I've probably been involved with about 6 different colleges that I know of in Iowa, so that's a pretty, well, there's lots of colleges, lots more than I knew. But they all have tutoring programs and or study groups, and usually at least a certain number of hours of that is free. So you want to, if your kids are struggling at all, they can find out those tutors and other resources. On the Homeschool Iowa website is a link to an 82-page booklet, so I wasn't going to print out the whole thing. This is the front cover, Your Course to College, and I included just a table of contents there for you guys to look at. It covers a lot of things. Now, it's on the Homeschool Iowa website, but it's just an Iowa, they're just linked to it as a resource. So it's not necessarily a Christian basis, but there's a lot of good points in here, a lot of good checklists and things to go through. Although there are requirements for things you take to a dorm room, I could have crossed a few of those off. But anyway, the one thing that they say in here is, written to the student, it's your responsibility to follow the class syllabus. It might be the only notification you receive about tests and assignments. Don't expect for professors to seek you out if you aren't doing well. It's up to you to ask for help. So I'm kind of to sum up that persevering and being prepared in that is just work on learning to study, even preparing for tests, memorizing. There's lots of things that they're going to need to just stick to it, keep working, don't give up. A third thing that I've found, and I'm not sure that this really has as much to do with college as just life after high school, is I've seen it with some of my kids and some other homeschool kids that I know. They need to be able to deal with paperwork. And I printed off way too much paper, killing trees, and I know a lot of things are electronic, but there's still forms that you have to fill out. I've known kids that, they just can't remember to renew their driver's license, and I know that slips sometimes, but, change of address forms, we have to do our taxes. There's so much that they need to know to do and to keep those papers organized. And I feel like that's one thing I should have done a lot better. I wish I would have done less of doing the simple little filling out a form things that they could have done, but it was quick and easy for me to do, and why bother them with it? It would have been good for them to know some of that. You know, it might be some of their personalities, because not all my kids are like that, so some of it's personality, but they do need to figure out how to work all that into a busy schedule. College makes things a lot busier. There's trying to balance that social life and a whole lot more studying on your own than public school children are used to, and even homeschool. I usually worked with my kids quite a bit. I mean, tried to get them to do independent study, but I still would, you know, make sure they had their work done. And as that quote said, that's not necessarily going to happen. Another question was, do children even need to go to college? I don't know where you guys stand on that. My answer is no. God has created our children unique, and he has prepared good works for them to do. And there are many, many different ways. We need Christians everywhere in all types of work, well, all types of legitimate work. So there's many different routes to that. Some of the options are the military, which has different routes to go through, even there. A 4-year university, 2-year community college, and that can be a degree. Usually I think it's like an Associate of Arts or Associate of Science. There might be some other 2-year degrees there. They also now have 2+2 programs. I don't know if you're aware of those. So that the first 2 years that they spend in a community college, that college has agreements with, I know all of our Regent universities in Iowa for sure, and I know that SEC and Kirkwood, those two places, have agreements with colleges to accept those first 2 years, and you're moving on to your last 2 years at the university. So SCC definitely has it with Iowa Wesleyan. I'm assuming they have it with Iowa State, UNI in Iowa, probably Drake. I'm not familiar with Drake very well. But it's there to be used, so you can, you know, get that 4-year degree, but still not lose any time in the community college. Other options are 1 or 2-year trade schools or vocational schools, or doing an apprenticeship or on-the-job training. If you're going to allow your kids to choose what they're going to do after school, after high school, I know some people who don't, so you might think that's a funny statement, but some families say this is what you're going to do, and in China, I'm pretty sure that's how they do their schooling. But if you're going to let them choose, please try to school them so that they have the opportunity to do what they would like to do. In my experience, I've observed some families where the Christian idea that I think we all have, there is great value in being a mother and being a wife. And we don't want to diminish that. I'm not meaning to diminish that, but God has his own timing and plans. And there may be a time period where a daughter wants to go into the workforce in some manner or go to a college. And I've known of girls that haven't had that confidence that they could even go to a community college. So the math and the reading, it's important, and it gives them the confidence. It won't hurt to be a wife or mother to know some math or reading. You could even help your children learn it then, right? So we want them to be able to be a desirable employee, or to be able to attend a college to maybe get a smaller degree to do something in the meantime while they're waiting on God's plan. In our case, it wasn't even that whether they were going to go to college. Our oldest child, I wasn't going to tell who was who, but you'd figure it out anyway. Our oldest child, first word was tractor, no doubt, gonna farm. That's all I couldn't hardly get him in the house to do schoolwork because he wanted to be on the farm. He went to community college for an ag program, seems logical. Got done with that, moved to Kansas, off the farm, wasn't farming there, might have been a girl involved. He's come back now, and he's on the farm, but has a successful trucking business that he just started up. So you don't know where they're going to go. Another one of our children, I can't begin to explain to you how difficult academics were. I mean, reading, writing, math, everything was hard. I mean, I often felt guilty at how much time I was spending trying to help that child get to where they needed to be. So I just wanted them to get past high school and, you know, I don't know, work at McDonald's or something. That's my child who has 1 semester left at a 4-year university and has been on, I never remember whether it's a dean's roll or president's list, all through every semester. I would have never thought she could do it, to be honest. And I want to believe in my children, but I knew the challenges there were. So, you know, I'm not sure there was anything more I could do to prepare her better. It's taken her a little more time, but she's doing it. And she knows how to work, where maybe some of my other ones don't know how to study as hard. Another one of my children seemed like the engineer. I mean, loved to tinker with things, understood things mechanically, and math and science were his thing. So that one's going to college, no doubt. He's doing an apprenticeship with a company, and it's great. He likes it. It's going to be a great job. And then I have this one that's still in high school, knows where she's going to the community college, knows where she's going to live at that community college, knows what 4-year school she's going to transfer to. It has it all planned out, and I'm trying to encourage her in that, and yet thinking, we'll see. So you just never know what direction your kids' paths are going to take. So I just would encourage you not to assume that they're not going to college, or some other thing that might need that. I mean, there are kids out there that this is what they're going to do from day one, and that's what they do, and that's great if that can be the focus and keep on with it. I'm just saying that doesn't always go the way we plan it, because God directs our steps. So another question is, what decisions could you make even now in their school-age years for unique needs of an individual child's interests or their future plans after school? My first reaction to that is time. Time to volunteer, time to stay a little longer or go a little earlier in order to help with setup of things or help with cleanup. This might be sports, it might be classes, youth groups. One of the things we did, which we've probably done multiple times, but we took our kids along to help somebody move. And the one that has apprenticeship at age 14 was offered a job with that company. They didn't know he was only 14. But it's interesting, the connections. He obviously declined the job at that point, but we stayed in contact with that family, and it's proved to be something that he's enjoying and an opportunity. So there are 2 things to do with that time business. Colleges look for the extracurricular. What do you do besides studying? So that gives your kids a chance to do that. It also gives them a chance to see what different jobs are like, different things. They might just be crossing something off of the list. My daughter thought she wanted to be a vet tech until she shadowed a vet and went on an extremely gory call and said, "This is not for me. I don't ever want to see that again." So just that time to be able to meet people, to try things out when your kids are young, and I just encourage it all through to volunteer for things. It gets them exposed to things and it gets them noticed. So I'm saying a lot. I'll try to quit that. When do we need to start worrying about college? My answer is never, but I'm going to say, when should we start thinking about college? I think right now, it could be going through the back of our mind, even if your children are little. You just kind of think about, well, observing them as we do as moms. What do they like? Start hearing things about what you have to do for college if you know it now. Getting all of it at once isn't quite so overwhelming when you've heard some of it going on before. But the time that the child starts doing 8th grade work or is in 8th grade, that's the time when you need to start getting serious about it, because those classes can already count for a high school transcript. So also some people, I don't know if you guys, have you heard of dual enrollment or the college, college and high school? Those options are available. You have to be either, you have to be dual enrolled. So depending on your opinion of that might affect how you feel about the high school, college courses in high school. I would recommend checking into, I don't know about your school districts that you're in. If they're not very cooperative with you, there might be a neighboring district that you can work with better. And you can do that. You just have to open enroll, which is just a request. The only catch is you have to do that in March before the next year. So if you want, the year that you wanted to do it and start in September, you have to have made the request before March 1st. So, and if you do that through a homeschool assistance program, I go through a homeschool assistance program and it's worked really well for me. My supervising teacher, though, I was talking to her yesterday, and she said she's been doing this for over 20 years, and she said, if you tell them to look at a homeschool assistance program, make sure they check it out, because they aren't all the same. The one I'm in lets me teach and decide what my children need and help me. They assist me with it. Some of the assistance programs lay down all the rules. So you just want to check it out before you just jump in on that. And as far as requirements from Iowa for transcripts, there aren't any. I don't know if other states use transcripts for tracking or something. I don't know. Iowa has so many different ways you can go with homeschooling, and so that's not what this talks about. So I'm going to skip all those different options. But the transcript is just a record of the classes the kids have taken. And like I say, it has to be 8th grade or after. And you just, when I say that 8th grade, a lot of kids will take Algebra 1 in 8th grade. It'll line up that way. And so that can be included on a high school transcript. And maybe some science classes. Those are usually the things that are used for that. So that's what a transcript is. It just has classes and the grades they received in those classes. But a transcript, along with a graduation date, that's the key, is what's used by the people at the next step. So the colleges, the military, maybe with apprenticeships. And what they're looking for, they want to know the students graduated and that they have taken enough credits. And we'll talk about what a credit is and how you figure that out. And this homeschooling, my supervising teacher, she has been doing it for over 20 years. She's had hundreds of kids go through under her. And she has never had a problem with any of the branches of the military or any of the colleges in Iowa accepting a transcript from a homeschooler. But what they really harp on is, I need a graduation date. And she says, I think they just have a hole in their forms that they need to fill out, so they want a date. So she goes, I'm not sure they even look at the transcript other than maybe the total number of credits at the bottom, unless there's something they really want to look into. Now, for scholarships and things to help with monetary, the expense of college, there we might want to see more of what they've taken. So one thing before we get to doing a transcript, and in order to do it, we need to have some information. So it's helpful to keep some records. And I have just like, this one lists videos, concerts, plays, live events that they've been to or have seen, travel or day trips, things that they've gone to see or do, places they've been. When you think about travel, you're being exposed to different cultures, even if it's just travel within the United States. I don't know where everybody has been. I know Olivia has been in other parts, and Iowa's different than the East Coast or the West Coast or many places in between. So, and even, I think of this, I laugh at my daughter, one of my daughters. Well, I laugh at all my children, but we live on a farm. I don't know if we've said that. And we went to Iowa City. She looked up, there was a building, and it was probably 4 stories tall, and it was a newer one with lots of metal, you know. And, are we in New York City? And I'm thinking, oh dear, this is a sheltered child. In my defense, she does not want to go shopping, and I don't know what's wrong with her, but I try to expose her to things. But so just keeping a record, and I have a health, sports, and physical, fitness. Oh, this is a day trip one, so maybe reading lists, books, periodicals, journals. You can keep track of all those things. I wasn't really diligent about this because I think overall, they don't need to know all the nitty-gritty details. What these are for is to help you come up with, hey, maybe my student has done enough, I don't know, whatever to call this, a sociology class. You've seen enough different cultures, or art electives, or music electives. There's different things that you do as a family that you can come up with that's a class. And I'll be honest, I always started very diligently, you know, but I didn't always finish real well. But at the end of the year, our homeschool assistance program, in order to do a transcript for you, they want to start it in 9th grade, and they won't start one if you don't do it right away. But at the end of the year, then we talk about all the classes the kids have taken. I talk about that with my supervising teacher so she can put it on the official transcript. But I talk about that with the kids at home. What do you remember doing this year? And let's write some of these things down. I wouldn't wait more than a year because then you start forgetting. Even after a year, you might. And keep the calendar. That's a great idea. Yeah, so you can remember what's taken place there. Let's see. So we have to keep records. So how do we start with a transcript? The first thing I think we need to understand is credits. And in that packet that I gave to you, there is a course of study that I got off of Homeschool Iowa. And I don't know if I have a copy of it up here. And it says like general course of study or a college prep course of study. And then what I have one from the school district that we're in, and it lists how many credits of each subject that you need. What I didn't know until a few years ago, because I just stayed in my own little world here, was Waco does 2 credits for a year's worth of school. But if you look at the ones from Homeschool Iowa, there's 2 on one sheet. It's got some little yellow squares around it. Let me see if I can. Oh, they're not yellow anymore. I copied it in gray, so it just looks like this. If you look at those, the general high school, on the one that I handed out, well, I handed out both of these, but it says English, and you need 4 credits of English. On this one, you need 8 credits. So it's the same amount of work, it's just how many credits you say it is. Whether you're going by the 2 credits for a year or 1 credit for a year. So one semester would be half a credit in one instance. It's really not a big deal as long as you stick with one thing the whole way through or adjust everything. So also, let's see where I am. So if you want your school district to make a diploma for you, then you're going to have to take these classes, not theirs, but something that looks like what they have required for their students, okay? I'm not sure that very many of you will go that route, but this helps because there's a list of classes. I mean, even if you don't, you can look up on your school district's website and get a list, or go off this Homeschool Iowa one to show you what the universities, the colleges, the military kind of expect your child to have had during high school. And then I looked up on the internet, and my screen was just full of images of transcripts. I mean, you can download, and actually Homeschool Iowa has a transcript generator and GPA calculator on there, but you do have to be a member to be able to use it. So, but I didn't let transcripts get too overwhelming for me. I went off this, and then I have 2 transcripts, and I think I gave you a couple of copies in the packet. My first one has the whole high school career on one page. It's not in here. Laid down the wrong paper. And I use it, it's what my district uses and gives me then an official transcript. And one thing I use that for is car insurance. Because they want an official transcript. I'm not finding it in here. This one. And what they mean by official is it has to have the school name on top. So they want to, and I don't know, different car companies I'm sure are different. They wanted a school's transcript, and now they're telling me if you're homeschooled, then you need to take like an ACT test. Well, that doesn't make sense for every year. And they accept my transcript, even though they say that's not what they want. But anyway, this is divided up into 4 years for your 4 years of high school. And so you take the course of study, and if you need 4 English classes, or 4 credits or 8 credits, you're going to have one every year. And you just divide that up so that you need each one of those. I mean, and you do the same thing with all the other requirements from that course of study that you've decided to go with. And you can change your course of study, especially, if you're not having the public school give you a diploma or certificate of graduation, I think maybe. But again, these are good classes to make sure your child has, because it's the general thing. But you don't have to take the classes that the school is offering. You need to come up with something that's similar, okay, that would fill that spot. And the way I figure that out, I don't know if this is sneaky or not. I'm sure I learned it from somebody. Is I take their course catalogs or course descriptions or student handbooks, and inside of them are all these descriptions of their classes and what they cover. I use that to maybe describe my classes or to see if my child has fulfilled some of those things. I had a kid working on a motorcycle. I don't know if you allow that or not. And he took the engine out, took it apart, rebuilt it, put it back together. And somewhere in here is a list of, don't have mine together like the rest of them. Here, power mechanics. It's a class that Waco teaches. This course will deal with small gas engines and machine repairs. The students will completely tear down a small engine, order parts, and rebuild the engine. We had a credit right there. Just a summer hobby. But I just used that description to say what he had done and use the name of the class. So I do that with the English classes. And I showed you the transcript that we get that's official from the public school just lists a class name and a grade, lists a class name and a grade. It really tells you not very much. It just lists it. So I have what I consider my backup transcript. And it, I don't know if I have, looks more like this. And what I just made this up on my own, and I have it for my own sake, for my kids' sake, and if anybody wants a little more information, like a university or a scholarship situation. Because what I do is instead of just putting like Animal Science 1 down, you don't have that one. Which one? You have Animal Science 2, right? If you have this page, I think. Applied Science of Animal and Crop Agriculture. Major units of study included feeding and care of cattle, observing for health, delivering precision diet and adjusting feed ratios, assisting with chemical application for row crop, machinery operations were also learned. Where do you think I got all those descriptions? I took some of that from the course catalog, and because they described there's all kinds of things for electives that you can do. So your life doesn't have to hugely change and just cram all this stuff in my opinion. You need to look for, to accomplish those things that are on that list. But as far as electives go, a lot of things can be added. So I added the GPA onto this because that wasn't even on, that's not even on the official transcript. So on the one that I have, because a lot of scholarships ask for what's your GPA, well, then I just have that calculated and we would know what to put in for a scholarship application. I think I have gone way over time, have I? Yes. I see that it says 142. Anyway, so the other thing I had, I thought we could go over this transcript and all that. I would be more than happy to really go over it with somebody. But with a lot of you having younger kids, it's not going to apply to you that much. The other question I was thinking about that this all leads to, in my opinion, is high school graduation. And I don't know if you all know what you're going to do for high school graduation or not, but there's almost as many ways to do that as there are homeschoolers too, because we all have our own ideas. But I know that some people just say, oh, you're done, and on to the next thing. Some people have a family celebration. Some people just do like a graduation party that a lot of people have after their graduation. It is possible to go through the graduation with the public school, particularly if you're in a homeschool assistance program, they let you do that. Otherwise, you might have had to take some classes your senior year. But I also, in case you're not aware, the Homeschool Iowa or niche has their own graduation. And the requirements there are that you're a member, so you have to that year pay for membership if you're not other years. And your student has to, there's a fee because they have the whole gown and mortarboard and nice diplomas. The diploma my kids get from the public school is like this big, and the niche one is beautiful. But then they can go across the stage if you feel like that's a good way to complete it. And I was going to say the requirement is that the student make a profession of faith. They don't have to do that publicly. They just have to agree to it before going through with the graduation. So that's basically all I had, more than what I had. But so do you want to do questions? Okay, does anybody have any questions? Kind of an odd. Yeah, see, and I was trying not to overwhelm people. The transcript in that just, it sounds overwhelming in some ways. It's really not.
It doesn't look hard. I need to start thinking about it. Essie said 10th and 11th grade this year.
Okay,
So
yeah.
we should have already been thinking about it.
But, I mean, yes. So when I say that our homeschool program won't do that, I mean, there's 200 kids in there. Not all of those are high schoolers. But they can't wait till the senior year and say, oh, yeah, did you remember doing this? Did you do that? Now, did you complete that? Or, all those kinds of things. It's just easier to do on a yearly basis. But it can be done. I mean, especially if you kept a calendar or, you know, how,
So
yeah.
we go back through.
So I'm not a great record keeper, which might be why my children aren't. I'm very detail-oriented and organized if I could be. I mean, that's kind of my, I don't know, that's my goal in life, and that's where I like to be, but it doesn't work out practically for me. I don't know what it is about my life that things seem to just show up and happen all the time. Like yesterday, I had 3 children. My grandsons were there from noon till 6, and I was expecting them for a couple hours. And before the day before, I wasn't expecting them to be here. And we got a puppy, and that was, so I had 4 babies in the house. So I bring some of this on myself, but some things just pop up. But.
How do you know how many hours? Like,
I forgot to go over the most important paper, my favorite paper in this packet that I'm not finding, but in yours it should be pink. It says figuring credits on it. And this helped me a lot, especially the 4th one there. But so criteria-based credit, it's granted when specific criteria is met or mastered. It's skill-based. So it's like that building the motor. Okay? So he did that. Obviously, the motorcycle runs. I don't really have any grading to do. You know, he did it, and so that's done. Content-based is usually when you have a specific amount of, it says a specific amount of content, but generally you have like a textbook of some sort that you're going through, and if you covered that, or a number of books that are assigned reading, that might be how you handle history or something. Time-based, if you spent a certain amount of time, and it tells you in the next section how to convert time. So, and then the last one's a combination of the above. So in time, they say 120 to 180 hours, with 150 hours being equal to a full year, and they come from 50-minute class times 5 days a week times 18 weeks in the year, or in the 18 weeks is for a semester. I was like, that's not right. Now, you also have to remember that this, and it says there somewhere, these aren't exact figures. When a kid is in the public school, they aren't doing schoolwork that whole 50 minutes. So this time is kind of helps me to try to be a little more, you know, let's be a little more diligent here, let's work a little harder, or to say, you know what, we've covered a lot of stuff here. We've spent a lot of time on this. And let's see. Yeah, so you need to keep track of credits earned through high school. It just says that on the bottom. I think I kind of went over that already. There's lots of things they're used for. But again, the colleges really don't look that close at them. They really don't. They don't really care as long as it looks like you've done your English and your math, and they want to see you've done some other things outside of school. Yeah. In talking to people in the workforce, they want to see that they'll show up. That's, you know, that's what they're really struggling with right now in the work. Not just now, it's been the last 10 years, 15 years. I've heard a lot more of, I just need my workers to show up. I want to be able to depend that they're going to be here, you know, for work tomorrow. So that's something I guess we need to stress, that you're diligent in what you've agreed to do. But. Any other questions? Corrections? You know, so my name's Nancy Skubal. I don't know if you had, I mean, I would be happy to answer anything I could if you do have questions. And so that's my email too, nancyscubal@gmail.com. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You probably can't spell that. It's just 6 letters, Skubal. Yeah. It's not hard until you look at it and then everybody wants to say other things and they're embarrassed to try other. So, I grew up a Smith. That was nice and calm and boring.
Well, thank you so much
Thank you.
for coming.
Have it moved.
Yeah, I will
Oh.
say something real quick. Oh, you know what? I don't know that you were on.
Uh-oh.